And so when you are wrapped up and consumed by that somebodyness, sometimes it can be very stressful, especially if so the somebodyness that you are occupied by, say, is like, you're dependent on your financial situation. So if that's who you identify with, and all of a sudden if the stock market fluctuates, which it may, or the housing market, or you lose your job, then all of a sudden you're in like a really rough spot. So it's going to be this continual kind of yo-yo effect of feeling good and feeling bad and feeling good and feeling bad. Whereas underneath all of that is this foundation of like the overview effect, Gaia, unicity, connection, love, all that. And then if that's where the anchor point is, from there we can play with whatever somebody we want, and it's like a fun game. But for the most part, we're kind of trapped in the game as opposed to being able to actually play the game from the ground up.
So at some point we can stop being played by the game and play the game.
Yeah. And I think things like meditation, things like, I don't know, we had like a nice hug before this. Like those little moments, I think, bring you back into like the things that matter.
Yeah. Actually, you are one of the best huggers that I know of.
Oh, good.
Yes.
It's because I'm dependent on it for like my life.
What's up, everyone? You are listening to Wake Up Naked. I am your host, Esmey Leon. We're going in deep into ourselves. We're going to be talking about ideas and concepts and things that have the potential to actually change our lives. So get excited, get ready, and what are you waiting for? Come over here and get naked with me.
What's up, everyone? My name is Esmey Leon, and you are at the Wake Up Naked podcast, and I am here with one of my favorite badass human beings, Aaron Alexander. Hi, hon. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks so much for having me in your beautiful home. Nice.
Yeah, no, thank you. I feel like Aaron Alexander, is that your birth name? It sounds so nice.
Alliteration. My dad's original name was Bile, so it was almost Aaron Bile, and then he was like a big hotshot New York City model person, and so Kenneth J. Bile didn't work so well in GQ and whatnot, okay. So then he converted to Alexander, thankfully.
No way! I didn't know that was the backstory.
So Aaron Biles, I was.
That was so close.
I was so close.
You would be nobody if you were Aaron Biles.
Well, I'm a big fan of Ram Dass these days, and he gets all into like, what does somebody mean in the first place? So we can talk about it.
Yeah,
somebody.
Yeah, what does that mean? Let's just.
Well, we're always creating our somebodyness. So something like this, like the act of creating a book, kind of confirms this somebodyness. So like Aaron Alexander, the Align Method, it makes us feel kind of comfortable with those titles. Yeah. Same thing we do with like the way that we choose to dress, or the watches that we wear, or the cars that we drive, or all of that. We kind of feel comfortable inside those different shells, but realistically, we have a whole plethora of different versions of somebodyness that we can kind of choose from in this lifetime. Not to get overly meta, Terrence McKenna.
No, let's get overly meta. I love this.
Here we are.
I already knew it was going to happen with you and me, us together like that. And we will get to your book, but I don't want to lose this. I feel like, don't you think that's part of the fun of having a human incarnation, that there is a plethora, but then we get to choose this identity? Don't you think that's part of the fun?
So as long as you're not being played by the identity is the big thing. So if you can, underneath all of it, like I think the core root of everything is, I don't know, light, love, connection, unicity, like all of those things. And then within that, like when astronauts go to the moon, they look down on Earth and they see this like unicity kind of oneness thing. What is it called? What is it called when they look back? There's a term for it. I mean, it's all the same stuff, unicity, but it's the overview effect.
Okay.
So you look down at Earth and you see this blue marble floating in space, and you see everything that's ever mattered, and all your, happiness and all your aspirations and all your guilt and all your shame and your family and your friends and all that just floating in this one little organism. And then you focus in up close, and all of a sudden you get wrapped up in all of your little individual somebodynesses. But it's all just a matter of where the lens that you want to take it from. And so when you are wrapped up and consumed by that somebodyness, sometimes it can be very stressful, especially if so the somebodyness that you are occupied by, say, is like, you're dependent on your financial situation. So if that's who you identify with, and all of a sudden if the stock market fluctuates, which it may, or the housing market, or you lose your job, then all of a sudden you're in like a really rough spot. So it's going to be this continual kind of yo-yo effect of feeling good and feeling bad and feeling good and feeling bad. Whereas underneath all of that is this foundation of like the overview effect, Gaia, unicity, connection, love, all that. And then if that's where the anchor point is, from there we can play with whatever somebody we want, and it's like a fun game. But for the most part, we're kind of trapped in the game as opposed to being able to actually play the game from the ground up.
So at some point we can stop being played by the game and play the game.
Yeah. And I think things like meditation, things like, I don't know, we had like a nice hug before this. Like those little moments, I think, bring you back into like the things that matter.
Yeah. Actually, you are one of the best huggers that I know of.
Oh, good.
Yes.
It's because I'm dependent on it for like my life. Like there's like in the book, one of the chapters is about touch, and so an example of the value of touch is it gives us, the human animal, the signal that it's okay and it's safe to grow because you are supported by your parents or the tribe or the community. So it's okay for your metabolism to upregulate, and you go into a place where you're getting bigger and stronger and cellular reproduction is happening because you have the resources to support that. And with babies that are not touched, that are in, say, incubators, for example, and they're in this little tube and the light, and they're, they don't want to be, you don't want to give them any bacterias or pathogenic, issues. So they keep them in this sterile environment. If you just introduce a little bit of massage to those babies, just I think it was like I have it in the book. I think it was just like 15 minutes a day. They end up rapidly going into this growth spurt phase, and they end up being able to leave the incubator much sooner.
No way.
Just because they're getting that signal that somebody out there is taking care and somebody's supporting them and loving them.
Yeah.
Same thing with another example we use in the book is the Romanian orphanages was a popular example where in the late 80s, the dictator there was encouraging everyone to have as many babies as possible and like
Where
build
was
up the population. Romania.
Oh, Romania. Okay.
Yeah, and then like there was a bunch of issues, and they had too many babies, and then they didn't have enough caretakers at the orphanages. And then the babies there had, they called it failure to thrive. And failure to thrive is literally like the babies stop growing when they don't get that indication of that signal that they're loved and supported by their environment through that physical contact.
So was it that they were just smaller than everybody else?
Yeah, and emotional development, like literally like the development of that human organism just goes into like this winter hibernation mode because they get the indication that the resources to thrive are not there. So they fail to thrive.
Wow. Well, I definitely want to go into that in more
We're
depth.
going real deep, real fast.
But
how about
I
the weather?
Want to say, no, we're going in deep.
Sunny outside.
Just like I like it. Okay. That sounded terrible. But where I'm going with this is that a proper introduction to you is you're an awesome podcast host yourself. You have an amazing podcast called Align Podcast. Yes. And excitedly, there is the Align Method, which is your first book.
It's my first book.
So I really wanted to shout that out because this is exciting. I think every human being on this planet has a book to write, but only a few follow the instinct and do the work to do it. So congratulations, Aaron. I'm so proud of you for whatever that's worth. And also, if someone buys your book, what can they expect?
Well, we describe it. So first of all, I co-wrote the book with a guy called Phil White, he's like a superstar in the world of creating stories and books about stuff like this. So he's co-written with Kelly Starrett, who's the author of Becoming a Supple Leopard, which is like huge. It's like the seminal book on like self-care, physical therapy type stuff like that. He also did the foreword of the book, and he read it in the audio book, which was really great, very exciting for me. He was one of the first people that what really inspired me to start making video content and kind of going in a different direction than just like having a clinical practice. So that was like 6 years ago, and I was just obsessing over all of Kelly's stuff. And I was just this, dickhead in Bend, Oregon, just like looking at all of his different things.
Are you from Oregon?
Books. No, I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then moved to Hawaii when I was 18, and then other places in between.
Okay.
But
then you ended up in Oregon.
Yeah.
And you became obsessed with Kelly.
amongst other people. I have a
Yeah.
tendency of obsessing over certain people. I've done it with like various different people, and like neurolinguistic programming language. You'd be like modeling a person is a thing that you can do. And
Yeah.
I'll find a person that I like the traits of that person. I'll obsess over them for some period of time. Right now it's Ram Dass, hence like the startup talking about somebodyness. And then I usually kind of like drift away to somebody else to obsess over. It's kind of strange. But I did that with Kelly for a while. And then it's very interesting to now be in the sound tube, reading my audiobook, and then have Kelly Starrett reading the foreword saying like how Aaron's, whatever, a nice guy or something. And it's just very fascinating, like full circle moment of like,
Yeah.
okay.
That's super cool.
It's
How
really
did
nice.
that, what was the moment where it was connected? Where did you guys meet? How did that
I just had him on
interaction?
the podcast a bunch of times. I've just been stalking him.
You've had him on your podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just had reaching out, and it's over. I've been on the podcast for like 5 years, and so during that time, I had Kelly on a bunch of times and reached out and did Rolfing body work with him. So it's kind of like think like physical therapy meets massage therapy kind of thing.
Okay.
So met up with that, and the only reason I am even mentioning that as far as value for any people listening would be, if you want to connect with someone, make sure that you're providing them value more than yourself, because people are busy, especially the people that you want to reach out and connect to. And so make sure that you are positioning your messages in such a way that you read it from their perspective and make sure that it's actually helping them more than it's helping you, unless them helping you somehow helps them, then it's fine. But just make sure that from their perspective, like, okay, this is for them. And so, that's what I did with Kelly. And now he's writing my forward, which is really, really, really grateful for it. But anyway, so Phil was a co-writer. He's written with Kelly Starrett and Laird Hamilton, XBT, Pavel Tsatsouline, like all the, like he's great. And so he was a real asset in creating the book.
Yeah.
And
so what did you guys create together? What if I read this book tonight, how am I better?
It invokes the idea that every aspect of your life is a form of movement and is a form of fitness. And fitness is so much bigger than just the push-ups or the pull-ups that you do at the gym. Literally, the way that you reach out to the handle of the door of the gym is a form of fitness. A protraction of the shoulder girdle, and then retraction, and then you're pulling that torsion through the hips, and you're grounded through your feet as you're doing that. And where's your breath? And when you're looking out into the distance, that has an effect on your autonomic nervous system. When you're looking up close, that has an effect. So the book is I would say it's the user's manual, but that's kind of cocky, but it's a user's manual on.
You can be cocky. I like it.
I call it physical inhabitants. So the way that you operate and drive your body in any situation throughout your life, the Align method has got you.
I love it. And actually, I saw that you said the Align philosophy. I fell in love with that, and actually, that's going to be one of my personal affirmations and mantra. FYI.
Oh, cool.
And you say how you move through a room is how you move through your life. And I just
That's Ida
feel,
Rolf. That's Ida Rolf quote.
Okay.
The way that she said it differently, but the way you walk through a room is the way that you walk through your life.
Right. So I love that. And it just hits very deep with me, because you could be alone. It doesn't matter. You're still floating in outer space and walking through this space. And it matters, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it does. Even that example that you gave about grabbing the handle, how often do we actually think that way?
And when you do think that way, it's shown to boost creativity. It's shown to literally, like, if you just start paying attention to your environment, you only have so much bandwidth of attention. So if your attention is drifting into the future, stressing about what you have to do, or drifting in the past, stressing about what you should have done, that's like a state of anxiety or depression, or whatever flavor. When you start to extend your awareness out into what's the quality of these lights hitting our skin right now, and that reaction, what's the sounds outside, what's this, the tonality of my voice, what's the density of this couch and the floor, all of a sudden that bandwidth of focus, instead of being attached to all these things to stress out about, comes into the present moment, and then you start to feel, research says it makes you more creative. It makes you feel less anxious. There's various different studies around that. One that we mentioned in the book is around doing dishes, and people that just pay attention. They're cued to, I want you to pay attention to the warmth of the water and the bubbles and the air in the room. Literally causes the people to feel less stressed out, and then they score higher on creativity tests. There's lots of different research
by
around that.
simply doing a simple task,
Paying attention,
like watching or washing the dishes.
Yeah, start paying attention. So you can start to integrate that. I won't just talk about studies the whole time, I promise. But there's another one called the Maids Study by a woman that I had on the podcast. I'm slipping her name right now. She's also in the book. I don't remember her name. But she's amazing. She's a Harvard professor, and she's wrote a book called Counterclockwise. It's going to come to me in a second, her name. And she had two groups of maids. One group, she had them, she told them, like, by the way, did you know that when you're vacuuming and when you're sweeping and you're walking this trash up and down the stairs, like, you're like totally killing the fitness game. Like, you're burning calories, you're making, you're burning fat, and you're building muscle, and your BMI is improving. Like, you're killing it. And then the other group, they didn't say anything. They're just like, cool, to keep mating. And then, I mean, you already know where I'm going to go with it. The group that were told, they planted this seed or this idea that every aspect of my mate experience is actually a form of fitness, and it's a developmental moment. It's an opportunity. All of a sudden, they end up burning more fat and increasing muscle, and their blood pressure drops, and all this great stuff happens because they just plant this seed of attention into their momentary experience. That's essentially what we did with the Align method.
So you could literally be doing the same thing, and it's just a matter of where you put your consciousness and your focus onto.
Yeah, you're never doing the same thing, but yeah.
But as far as, like, let's say you're cleaning or washing the dishes, but just with a different intention, it could change everything.
Oh yeah, if two people in the same, but I thought you meant like as a repetition of the same, because that's another interesting thing of, like, you never step in the same river twice. So you literally are never ever doing the same thing. So anything that you think is repetitious in your life, you're just not paying close enough attention. Like your body at a cellular level, you're this aqueous floating blob moving through space. It's being turned over all the time. And you have, a zillion, that's a made up number, but different.
It is?
Zillion just means like a whole buttload. It's like infinite.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a real number.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Problem.
God, I was like really thinking about that.
The motion, the motion through your feet, I believe there's 36 different joints in the foot, and so it would be 10 to the 36th power of potential ranges of motion, or opportunities for different movement with every step of your foot. It's a buttload. 10 to 36 is just a lot of zeros, 36 zeros.
Zillion, yeah.
Yeah, it's a zillion, right? Exactly. Yeah. So every time you step on the ground, that's one of those 10 to the 36th potentials of motion. So if you think, oh, I'm just taking a while, like walking, just walking. It's like, no, walking. Like, walking is an experience if you have the attention to actually start, like, getting into it, digging into it. And then if you can do that, it starts this whole new kind of cascade of, like, I don't know, greater level of interest in your life, I think.
So walk us through, no pun intended, walk us through, like, what's it like being Aaron then? Because are you literally, like, all day just being like, whoa, I'm walking. Whoa, I just opened my car door.
Only if I'm high. So,
oh, me too, by the way. Only if I'm on acid.
Great. I support that. No, I mean, there's all sorts of amazing research that shows lots of different psychoactive substances are really beneficial for, increasing attention, which decreases, all the things that are kind of like a bummer in modern society, anxiety and depression, all that. And amongst, like, alleviating inflammation, and which is associated with depression. So I think cannabis it's like this alien superfood plant that is, I think, immensely valuable, and it has not even necessarily just the psychoactive part. But yeah, I mean, a lot of ideas that throughout history, religions and philosophies, and I think maybe meditation and yoga and all of that, I think in large part was founded on people stumbling upon psychoactive plants, having experience with it, writing it down, And then all of a sudden it becomes this like prophecy to be preached throughout the years.
Okay. Do not shoot the messenger. But I had read somewhere that there's a theory that Jesus was on mushrooms and like, and there's these
Jesus is a mushroom, is what you read.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
no, seriously. So the Bible. So it's like the Dead Sea Scrolls is where there might be something else. We won't
go too far deep into this, but I had read that there's at the cathedrals there's these beautiful paintings and they have the little mushrooms like in the paintings.
Yeah.
And so there's reference to perhaps him and the disciples being like high, and it, to your point. Coming up with all, or really connecting to source because you've let go of all the BS, all the thoughts, all the ego, all whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean that's the hero's journey. Like Joseph Campbell, Hero 1,000 Faces. Like you go through and you start off in this ordinary world. It's like the story of Jesus, like to a T, as is all these other different religions. Like I don't know how many religions share the same story, but it's a lot. So you grow up in this ordinary world, and then from there you have this call to adventure. This is Joseph Campbell. And then you resist the call at first, and then eventually you go out and you go on the adventure. You fight the dragon, or in Jesus' case, like Satan, and you get crucified, and then you go and you fight the devil, and you do your whole thing, and then the rock gets moved, and you come out, and like that's the process of dropping your somebodyness and shrieking in terror and fear because you've lost your Esmey for a moment, and that's what you've based your whole life upon. And then you release that for a moment. It seems so terrible, and then you come out and all of a sudden you see the world from this different perspective, and you'd like to share it with the ordinary world that you came from. That's the hero's journey that's ubiquitous throughout every hero's tale and like most any story, including the Bible.
Right. Do you feel you're on your own hero's journey right now?
Yes, of course. How could I not be?
Yeah. Have you, tell me about a time that you've utilized psychedelics. We've talked about this before. How have they served you? Has there been like a powerful insight that has been life-changing for you, or how have they served you in your life?
I mean, I don't know. It's like, think of like Esmey, tell me about the workout that changed your life. You'd be like, okay, what's a workout that really like changed my, there's not like I think with any time you have a meditation or maybe some sexual experience or some breathwork thing or some near death thing or some psychedelic thing or whatever it may be, it's just like one of the many titrates to kind of mold and sculpt this, your you-ness. So I don't know that I've had like a specific moment using anything psychoactive, but lots of little micro moments that have like slowly kind of, and it's usually the same message over and over again.
Which is?
Love yourself. You are love. Like the foundation of everything is love, and anything that is, and love heals all. Anything that is diseased or sick or dark or shameful or painful or any of that stuff is somewhere where love is missing. But underneath all of that it's the same juice. It's like the astronaut overview effect. Like it comes back to like, yeah, that is, we're all floating in the same soup here. Like there's a quote from Andrew Taylor Still. He's the founder of osteopathy. He said that harmony dwells where obstruction does not exist, and so we have these obstructions, these belief systems that kind of make us kind of contort and contract and twist and turn. It could be shame, or it could be fear, it could be whatever it may be. And then underneath all of that superficial disharmony or obstruction is harmony.
Wow. Okay.
So like underneath that topical layer of twists and turns, it's like, okay, cool. There's this consistency, and that I think that's, we live, for the most part, we're sold this idea that we're that superficial layer, but I think we're actually, the other part, and we're all of it. You got to love the whole thing, I think. And so that's what I'm learning presently is how can I love everything? Love pain, love shame, love that person that cut me off and flicked me off, love that parking ticket. Because it doesn't really serve me so much to have any kind of holding kind of resentment for any of that stuff.
Yeah. We talked before, and I was really enjoying the conversation. I wanted to go deeper into this sense of identity with Aaron and who Aaron is, and Aaron who wrote a book, and what are the tools you've used to, maybe disassociate is too big of a word, but how do you keep that balance in your day-to-day life for anyone that's struggling with getting lost in the identity?
One, I mean, a lot of the people that I tend to surround myself with are doing certain aspects of life more effectively than I am. So I usually, I think a good rule is that if you're like the smartest person in the room, or the funniest person in the room, or the, whatever person in the room, the fittest person in the room, it'd probably be wise for you to find another room. And so I think that just continuing to be around people like, damn, you are just so much better than me at that. Wow. Like I am just like this nascent little fetus in comparison to you. And so I do my damnedest to be around that a lot. Which is like inevitably quite humbling. I mean, that's a starting point. Choose your room wisely.
Now, you wrote this. I agree with that, by the way. I think that's so important. But I think it's really hard for most people.
Yeah.
Because call it ego. I don't know what it is, but I think there's fear in saying, oh my God, this person is way better than me.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, embrace it.
But you purposely find people where you are the fetus.
You want to balance, so it's like a rule that I've heard from somebody else is like, have it broken down into thirds, so a third of the people in your life are people that are at your level in whatever capacity, whatever level you're shining the lens on. And so you're like, cool, we're just buddies. We hang out, we talk about stuff, we talk about our issues. Like we're like, cool, we're like one level. And then a third of the people are people that are way past your level. And they're like, essentially like, you're like my mentor. Like I might have things to teach you, but it's kind of more passive, and, it might be like youth or something that I'm teaching you. But like you're teaching me for sure. And then have the other third people that you can instruct and guide and teach and facilitate their growth. And so I think it is helpful to have all of that, because you get a new lesson from each of those stages. So you get to learn a lot from being a teacher as well. And you're always a teacher. You're always a student. You're always everything. It just depends. It's all, relative to the room that you're in.
Yeah. But I like what you said. And I like that breakdown, because if you didn't break it down like that, someone might think like I always have to be around, people that are, and so, but I like, because you are around different people, but that means different things are coming out of you, whether it be different insecurities that you're going to have to check and pretty much heal or rise up when you're around someone that you think, oh, you're way ahead of me in this aspect of my life, right? Yep. That's a good thing. And then you're with someone else where you're teaching, and then something else comes out of you, pride or whatever it may be. I want to go back to your book in the sense of, did you always know you were going to write a book? Or because I really feel I've heard so many people, including myself, talk about wanting to write a book. And did you always know that, or did it just come out, or how was that for you?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I think the idea that everybody has a book in them, I don't know that I agree with that, not to be disagreeable, but I don't think everybody needs to write a book. I don't think everybody needs to be an influencer or be a podcaster or be some type of disseminator of information and create, I don't think that's necessary. It'd be a very noisy world if that were the case. I think there's it's, if you don't feel like a rule that I've heard from somebody else as well is if it would be more painful to not do the thing than to do the thing, it's probably wise that you do the thing. In this case, it's the book. So if it's just like that book is like, it's like I'm like constipated with book, and I gotta get it out of this human. If that's the way it feels,
you pooped out your book.
It probably means that, exactly. Yeah. It probably means that like, okay, cool, there might be a book in there. But I think oftentimes we get wrapped up in like the idyllic, the idea of my somebody My somebody would be way more somebody if I had a book, or if I had a, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So that I felt as though I felt like book constipated, and that started to pop up maybe 4 years ago or something like that, where it was kind of like, oh, I think so. But a lot of it with that is it's very vulnerable to create something like that. And I'm like, my nature, as you could tell through this conversation, is just like, if it seems like it's present in the moment, I'm like, oh, I'll just talk about it. And then sometimes it gets me in trouble, but that's okay. And so in the book, there's like all sorts of like vulnerable little bits in there throughout it. And so to put that out and potentially like lay yourself on the chopping block for people to be like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, you're a terrible writer. Or like, oh, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Or, oh, you like, there's all these different little whispers of self-doubt and all that stuff that comes up, which makes it be kind of like a spiritual practice, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
Was that scary for you then to write it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so when I got the book deal, I felt like I was like a Renaissance artist being commissioned by the church to create this thing. And then I felt like I tricked the publishers essentially, to like,
how so?
Well, because you go in and you have your team of agents and you're dressed up as good as you possibly could be dressed up, and you have your proposal put together, and it's like this 75-page document, just like essentially just, blowing you up as much as possible, saying like how it's going to be this and that, and these people are going to support it. It's going to be that, and they're do this endorsement. And he's going to do the forward, and it's like, this is who I am. So you're like wearing your somebodyness as much as, but the agent's like, no, like you be somebody, like this, like tap into that somebodyness right now. And then after that, it actually like worked better than we were anticipating. And then, I'm like, okay, well now I'm back at my freaking 1-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I have to write this book.
Now I got to create this book.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So you had to write a book. And what was that process like for you?
Ups and downs of feeling like king of the world. And I have this prophetic information to come, and it's being birthed out, and it's this beautiful experience, and I'm like tapping into source or whatever new age shit, to, oh, this is not going to work, and I'm going to maybe not even finish it, and I'm going to have to, pay the publishers back the advance and have to just like, just not do this because I don't think I'm going to get it done.
Yeah. And in those moments, what was the thing that like snapped you back?
Deadlines, team, tribe. I had like I had the co-writer working with me, so we were able to like get pumped up about chapters together, which was huge. I think that it's like if you want to go far, go with a crew. If you want to go fast, go alone. So I think that with going far and actually being able to writing a book essentially is like climbing a mountain. I don't know if you've ever done any like multi-pitch rock climbs.
I've done a Spartan race.
Okay, so it could be like that too. Okay. But so the rock climbing analogy, just for the sake of, it's a pretty simple analogy. You say you're doing a pitch. So the book is, I think it's 18 or 19 chapters. So that would essentially be like a, maybe like an LCAP, 19 pitch rock climb. So a pitch is a single length of rope.
Okay.
So when you look to the top of that mountain, it's like, wow, 19 lengths of rope. That sounds terrible. Like I don't think I can do it. But then you focus and you do the one pitch, and then you get to the top of that length of rope, and then you set up a new anchor point, and you do all your thing. You set up your belay, and then your partner goes up. You're like, oh, cool, we did it. And then you go up second pitch, and then the third pitch. So breaking the book down into essentially like I write articles for magazines and stuff like that. So essentially it's like, okay, I'm like, Men's Fitness or something commissioned me to write an article about the way that sound affects your physiology.
Okay.
So we're going to do that article. So we broke it down in those little individual segments, and then it becomes much more tangible. Yeah. But the idea of starting from zero and saying I have to put this whole thing together feels very daunting, to the point of like feeling like you just want to quit. But when you break it down in general into little segments, and this is metaphoric for like any aspect of your life, most things that are hard to do in your life, you can figure out a way to break down into individual segments, and then from there it becomes much more manageable. It's like food. Like you wouldn't eat your whole dinner plate in one bite. You know, you take a, you chop off a piece, and then you chew and you chill and you relax, and then 2 hours later you're like, cool, we did it. We digested food.
Yeah,
so that was a process writing the book.
I love that, and I love that it's transferable to anything in life, not just writing a book. Whatever goal you might have, whatever aspiration, it literally sounds like from your advice that it's about breaking it down.
Break it down.
Don't make this huge thing.
How you do anything is how you do everything is like another fun, probably overly mentioned quote. So you can start to integrate that into your whole being. So that's why I say like creating a book in this case was like somewhat of a spiritual practice, I think, for me, or a life practice or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it stems into other parts. I'm a more well put together person from now after creating that. I mean, it's been like a year and a half of 2 years, considering like the beginning of like projecting it out and putting the proposal together. And so
I could vouch
like
to
a better
that,
person
because when
now.
I first met you, I was like, God, this guy.
I believe it.
And then a year and a half later, I was like, okay.
No, I bet you I'm a different. I bet you. I mean, I think you're joking, but I think you might be a little serious.
I am joking. I'm totally joking, but obviously we all have grown in the past 2 years. But
no, I mean, I tangibly feel, and I think that's a good thing. Like, I have the maybe blessing or curse of being able to look back and listen to myself talk. Like, I know for a fact if I listen to this conversation, I can even hear little bits of like ego pop up as we're talking, actually. I'm trying to like writing it, and I know for a fact when I look back, if I happen to listen to this conversation in 5 years, I'll look back and be like, oh, like ignorant Aaron. Like there was so much to learn. And so that's great. Like love yourself in the moment, realize that you don't fucking know anything. You're just doing as long as you're doing the best you can, and you're doing your damnedest to just be authentic with where you're at. That's all anybody can ask of you.
Yeah.
And in the future, you will look back, unless you're just like, a slow learner, or you're just not very active, or you're surrounding yourself with like yes men or something, and you haven't really grown a lot. You will look back regardless of where you're at and be like, oh yeah, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And maybe not anything. I shouldn't say anything, but you didn't, you can see blind spots.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for those blind spots to kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Like we'll see when it comes.
Yeah. When you do that, do you tend to look at that Aaron with more compassion, or do you tend to do, because I do think that this is interesting. When you go back, I've looked at videos of myself 5 years ago and I'm like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. And then I want it off the internet ASAP.
Yep.
And then I shift my attitude and my energy where I'm like, I'm so proud of this girl who's like, was doing the best that she could. How do you do that? How do you process that with yourself as you look back? I know that you just said, oh, ignorant Aaron, but
well, ignorant, in the most compassionate way possible. Ignorant in like the literal sense of the word, of just like, I'm, ignorant to what I will know in 6 months, 2 years, 10 years. Ignorant, not in the like, oh, stupid jerk, ignorant. It's like, no, ignorant is like literally, I just don't know.
Yeah.
And so as long as, I mean, I think that's an interesting analogy for like fitness and, whatnot. If you're, doing exercise with a big group of say 100 different people, everyone will have different skill levels. This person deadlifts 500, this person deadlifts 45, this person, throughout that, where they can meet each other and all be riding the exact same wave is living right at the edge of their boundaries. If you can live at the edge of your boundaries and be with a bunch of people that are adept with the craft of respecting your boundaries, but gently nudging them, if you're around a group of people like that, it really doesn't matter how good they are at the thing, because we all share that one thing in common. So as long as you're being respectful of your boundaries, but also kind of just giving them a little nudge, the more often that you can do that, I think the more you will grow and the more sustainable your growth is. So it's like the tortoise and the hare kind of thing.
Yeah. I love that word, sustainability. Because
I
think a lot of the times we could get there fast. Even like, let's say an example of losing weight. Any idiot can find a way to lose 20 pounds in a month if you do crazy things. But I think for me, it always goes back to like, we want to be able to sustain it. not just yo-yo through life.
I mean, you want to be 80, 90, 100, whatever, and be dancing and having sex and doing, playing with your great grandkids and being a silly bitch. Like, you want to like have fun and like really be able to, carpe diem and joie de vivre and do all the things when you're like 100-year-old man or woman. And the way that you do that is not by burning out your gears at 30 for the sake of some Instagram post. And the way you do that is you respect your body and you actually indulge yourself in nurturing. And that's something that I've done a lot of prostituting of myself from a physical perspective as a means of acceptance and validation in the form of expressing myself physically. And then you get an injury and you're like, oh man, like I can't do those tricks or whatever. And then you push through that because that's your tool for validation. And then you realize that by you, I mean me, are willing to literally hurt yourself in the name of acceptance. And you've realized that is a tool that you've used for that. And there's so many other different ways to connect with people that's not just like saying, look at me.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you are wise enough to acknowledge that and to grow through that. Aaron, we are reaching the end of this amazing conversation. I've had such a fun time talking to you. I just think you're such a badass human. And 2 final questions for you.
Hit me.
What is the scariest thing you've ever done?
Scariest. Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's very like apparent, like obvious scary things. Like again, like a rock climb. I used to be into rock climbing in large part because of like more masculine validation things. There's things that pop up with that, but those are more like trite.
Like life. Like what has been something that maybe your mind is like, there's no way you're going to do this.
I think anytime I'm with, especially female, like intimacy with a female is always quite, feels very, it's like vulnerable, kind of scary, in quotations, territory sometimes. And so expressing that I care or have feelings for particularly a female. Men, it's not such a big deal.
Which is interesting because I feel a lot of times, well, actually, no, there's a lot of bromance happening. And dude's like, what's up? I love you. But yeah, so
it pops up with men for me as well. Actually, a bit, but it's even more with women.
With women.
Yeah. And so any time that there's like the instances throughout my life that I've expressed that or like feel that manifesting, that tends to be kind of like a little scary for me.
Is there something you've done to overcome that?
No, I've been pretty much a bitch over the last decade. I've been like, like I've had.
Thank you for your honesty. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. I've had a fear of intimacy, I would say, for, I don't know, the last like 10 years or something, which is fine. I've gotten a lot of other stuff done. I've, read probably more books than I would have and listened to more podcasts, and I created this book and, I've done like, there's a lot of things that have manifested themselves because I had, fear to like maybe connect with a person at a deeper level and like spend more time hanging out with them watching Netflix. Like I didn't do a lot of that. So instead I did other stuff.
Okay.
And so now I'm kind of in a place where I'm like, okay, like compassion and connection and love and community and relation, like all of this stuff that I'm creating, I feel like it's the meaning or value for me would be bringing people together.
Okay. We could dive in. I'm going to have you back on because that conversation alone, I think could take another hour. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And as we wrap up in a sentence, what are you most grateful for right now?
Man, so much. I think most grateful for right now, I think just feeling safe in the world. Like I'm for the first time in a very long time, I think maybe almost ever, I'm starting to feel like safe, and feel like supported by the tribe and feel like,
community.
Yeah, like as long as I feel like I've kind of found a role to fit, like a piece of like, okay, I kind of understand the shape of my piece, and I see the value that I can provide and I can actually respect it. For the longest time, I think, especially for a man, but I think a human in general, it's like, what is my role in the tribe? And if you're not really sure, and I know that's for women as well, especially in like the world that we live in, especially like a woman in LA, because it's the roles are kind of like strange here. Maybe not strange, but just, it's like everyone's an entrepreneur, and I'm, they're all in their somebodyness here, much more than, maybe like Wisconsin or something. The roles are a little bit more different there from here. I think kind of talking out my ass, because I don't know about Wisconsin, to be honest. But the traditional roles, so that's something that I feel, as long as I continue just living my life in kind of the way that I have, I feel as it seems as though, from what I'm watching, that I'm providing some degree of value enough for people to want to like keep me around. Which is something that I don't think I really truly felt in the past.
I love that. And I think that's huge. And I want to end this because I want to honor your time. I know you have shit to do, places to be, probably some interviews to go to. He's a big deal. He wrote a book.
Pretty big deal.
He's somebody.
Somebody.
No, but I just want to quickly say, I am so proud of you as a human. I'm so proud of you for not just thinking about something, but actually executing. I'm so proud of the way you show up. I'm so proud of, if you go on his Instagram, you'll see how you are open and you're just open. And I think that that's a big deal. And I think that's something to be proud of. And if you haven't heard that already, then I wanted you to hear it today. I'm just so proud of the execution and the showing up and the amazing human that you are. So thank you for being here. And I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yay.
Thanks for having me. Woo!
Hugs and drugs.
Hugs and drugs. Well, hugging is a drug. That's what I say.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you got as much out of that as I did. If you have not hit the subscribe button, make sure to go back and hit subscribe and keep coming back. Team, we are going to the top, and I will see you there. I'm out.